should have done this. The rest goes up and gives the red part. Okay, no problem.
Get to the camera.
You did a good job.
Good morning, everyone. We'll try that again, students. Good morning, everyone. All right. I'm Lori Snyder-Benier, and I use she, her pronouns. And I'm the interim stand-back dean of the Nicholas School of the Environment. And it's really my honor and privilege to welcome you all to the Nicholas School of the Environment's PhD recognition ceremony. I want to welcome our graduates, fellow students, friends, family, faculty, and staff, and everyone who can be together with us today. I also want to thank right from the beginning, Corey, Garrett, Jessica, Rachel, and Danielle, who made this event possible to celebrate with you and make it special. So let's give them a round of applause. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge that what is now Durham was originally the territory of several Native nations, including the Tutilo and the Saponi-speaking peoples. Many of their communities were displaced or killed through war, disease, and colonial expansion. Today, the Triangle is surrounded by contemporary Native nations, the descendants of the Tutilo, Saponi, and other indigenous peoples who survived early colonization. These nations include the Halawai Saponi, the Saponi, and the Okanichi Band of Saponi. North Carolina's Research Triangle is also home to a thriving urban Native American community who represent Native nations from across the United States. Together, these indigenous nations and communities contribute to North Carolina's ranking as the state with the largest indigenous population east of Oklahoma. This weekend is a time of celebration. This ceremony celebrates the contributions you have made to the scientific community and to the academic community here at the Nicholas School and at Duke. And we pause to recognize that this has been a challenging year, particularly for some in our community. And I want to acknowledge the pain, anger, anxiety, frustration, and helplessness that many feel. Those feelings reflect the passion that animates your work and make our world a better place. But of course, I want to ask that this weekend, within all of those emotions, we carve out a very large space for joy. You and your classmates deserve to be celebrated because, against all odds, you've done it. You've reached the 2%. Okay, not the 2% of highest income earners in America. I'm sorry about that. But the 2% of the US population that has earned a PhD degree. And if you were like me, you loved school so much, loved learning and research, that you just couldn't stop with 1 degree or 2 degrees. You had to get all the degrees. And your parents, like my parents, may have wondered if you were ever going to get a real job. Well, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, they're finally getting that real job, but not until we take some time to brag on them a whole bunch. You're embarking on your next adventure. Some of you are heading to postdocs and other academic positions. Some are heading to industry and nonprofits. All of you will engage in work that pushes the frontiers of science, uses science for the betterment of our world, and or help train the next generation of environmental scholars and leaders. When I think back over my own career, I'm surprised at how much of a role serendipity played. There were key times where casual connections with colleagues developed into completely new research directions. About 10 years ago, I was approached by a history professor who was starting a new center at the Keenan Institute for Ethics on regulatory policy. Well, I was intrigued. I mean, first, what was a history professor doing interested in regulatory policy? And why start this center at the Keenan Institute for Ethics? So I went to lunch with Professor Ed Ballison, and he's now the Vice Provost for Interdisciplinary Studies at Duke, by the way. And that began an amazing 6-year collaboration, not just with Ed, but with several other colleagues, a series of conferences and papers, and a book. And while this is a personal example, I guarantee you it's not unique to our faculty or to my colleagues who've had successful careers post-PhD in a wide range of institutions. Getting your PhD is often about putting your head down, getting the data collected, getting the analysis done, writing up the results, and becoming an expert in a very narrow topic and skill set. Those things don't stop just because your PhD is over. But it is important to occasionally look up. Take those lunch or coffee meetings with colleagues in other fields or other parts of the organization you'll be working for. Be open to go outside your comfort zone when the really compelling ideas come along. Be open to the serendipity. Some of the best ideas and collaborations can be found in the unlikeliest of places. Whatever comes next for you, please keep us informed as your post-Duke life unfolds. We regularly profile alums on our website and in my newsletter, and I'd really love to see you featured there. Before we hear from our host of ceremonies, Dr. Prasad Kasabatla, Professor of Environmental Chemistry and Senior Associate Dean of Research and Doctoral Programs, I'm pleased to introduce our student speaker. The student speaker is selected from among the graduating PhD students to represent them and speak to you, our graduates, and your guests on behalf of the graduating class. Since her advisor will formally present her to you all after her remarks, I'm going to keep this introduction very brief. Jessica Lavasser earned a bachelor's degree in chemistry and biochemistry from Colby College. Jessica holds a master's degree from the University of Washington in environmental health. During her time at Duke, Jessica served as co-president of the Nicholas School PhD Advocacy Council. Please help me welcome Dr. Jessica Lavasser.
Hello, everyone. So, good morning. I'm honored to have been nominated as this year's student speaker at the Nick School graduation ceremony. So, welcome to my fellow graduates, who I hope are feeling something like relief or elation, or maybe both today. Welcome to the families and chosen families of the folks who are here today, the graduates who are here today. And then, as Lori said, but I want to echo it again, thank you to the staff at the Nicholas School for putting this together. This was a heavy lift. Particularly, they were doing this during acceptance season, and so they were dealing with incoming students. They were dealing with us as outgoing students, so we're really grateful for all of your efforts here today. I don't know where you are back there, so thank you all again. So the Nicholas School is a pretty special place. I don't know how many of you know this, but we are the largest school within Duke's graduate school. There's about 130 of us PhDs at any given time. Our work and environmentalism as a whole is meant to be interdisciplinary. It's meant to draw professionals from various areas of hard science and social science into the fold to solve some of the greatest problems of our time. Our dissertations pulled together disparate reaches of the environmental field. From focusing on northern Pacific right whales to mechanistic toxicology, from conservation to exposure science, many of us had interdisciplinary dissertations too, pulling from economics, chemistry, sociology, political science, and history. We bridged these fields to answer complex questions. We studied microbes, climate change, salmon, governance, and factory farms to holistically answer the questions that we wanted to answer. Our whole doctoral education likely has been full of watching others be busy. The constant commotion often fills the void and maybe poked at our feelings of being an imposter. We likely found ourselves thinking, how did that person write that so quickly? Should I be doing more? But we know that this experience was a marathon and not a sprint. And we made it. But this graduation is actually our starting line. Our lives do not magically change once we walk across this stage. We've been experts for years, but have humbled ourselves to be students, to learn and grow in our field. We've said yes to opportunities, classes, teaching, and research, all that pushed us beyond our limits. But now we get to rest. There's a popular Mary Oliver poem that I often see displayed around campus. Especially in the Nick School, we really love her poem, The Summer Day. Often folks just pull out the last two lines. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? It poses an honorable question, implying, what change will you make in the world? How will you leave your mark with your one life? But I'm actually unconvinced that that's what Oliver was trying to say with this poem. You see, she spends the first half of the poem marveling at the natural world, how a grasshopper eats, washes her face, and then flies away. She then says, I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down into the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. And then she continues, tell me, what else should I have done? What else should she have done other than being idle, being blessed, being present? What else should she have done other than marvel at the world around her? What else should she have done other than spend her one wild and precious life quietly enraptured with the world? As environmentalists, we know how to appreciate what's around us. We see the birds, the trees, the grasses, and the ocean. We lean into the mountains. We let rivers soothe us. We know that our work may take generations to finally come to fruition, and yet we continue. We push and maybe tell ourselves we don't need rest, that the environment needs us more than we need it, and that to solve climate change, we have to keep going, keep pushing, saving human health by whatever means necessary, even if that means we never rest until we crash. Philosopher, poet, and professor Dr. Bayo Akomolafe offers a meditation on the saying, "The times are urgent. Let us slow down." He muses that offering an invitation to slow down can often seem like the wrong thing to do when we're in the midst of today's chaos. But his point is that our rushing through life and work means that we can become trapped in our patterns, including the ways in which we try to address crises. We should linger in our discomfort, in our rest, staying present in order to seek answers, to examine how we may be missing critical points. To slow down is to pause long enough to face what is hidden. And as Dr. Akomolafe says, the idea of slowing down is not about getting answers. It's about questioning our questions. There is no way we can continue our pursuits of better human health or better environmental protections if we can't take care of ourselves. Our lives outside of our scholarly pursuits are also valuable and should be protected. As we move forward into our careers, yes, we must rest to avoid burnout, but we must also consider resting as protection of our knowledge, protection of our expertise, our passion, our drive. All of it is just as valuable as our day-to-day existence. Rest as we live out our dreams. We did it. Congratulations to all of you. I hope you're each as proud of yourselves as you should be, because you did it.
Good morning, everyone. As Dean Banir said, I'm Prasad Kasibatla. I am Professor of Environmental Chemistry and Senior Associate Dean for Research and Doctoral Programs at the Nicholas School. And I have the pleasure of serving as your host today. So we are now going to slow down, we're going to linger, and we're going to celebrate our graduates. This is a joyous occasion, so I'm not going to ask you to hold your applause. Feel free to applaud as and when you like. We can celebrate, laugh. I encourage photographs, laughter, great time. There'll also be plenty of time during the reception for photographs. So during this time, each student's advisor will come up here and say a few things about their advisee. The advisors have served as the cheerleaders, as mentors, as partners, as coaches during their time. So I'm sure they have a lot to say about each of their advisees. But just so we're not here till late in the evening, I'm going to ask all the advisors to try to limit their remarks to about 3 to 4 minutes each. This year we have 1 Master of Science and 18 Doctor of Philosophy graduates from 4 graduate and 1 certificate program. Some of them have already left to start new jobs or start postdoctoral work, but we have the pleasure of meeting 12 of our graduates here today. Our PhD students represent some of the best minds in the school. They dedicate their lives to research and teaching, to educating the next generation of environmental scholars, and discovering new ways to help the world. So graduates, please join your advisors up here as you're called. So let's start. To present our University Program in Ecology graduates, we'll hear from Drs. Emily Bernhardt and Justin Wright.
I also just wanted to tip my hat to these PhD students who made it through the pandemic. I think you all get extra gold stars on your diplomas. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do at any time, but to do it in the midst of a global pandemic is even more impressive. So I am delighted to stand up here first as myself, and then I'm going to pretend to be Jean-Philippe Joubert. And I'm first going to celebrate Dr. Audrey Tellman. I think you're supposed to come stand here awkwardly beside me, Audrey. So Dr. Tellman came to Duke straight out of an undergraduate degree at Notre Dame, following a childhood that involved a lot of time on the beaches of Southern California as an avid surfer, swimmer, and beach lifeguard. So of course she came here to study ice and snow. That makes perfect sense. Dr. Tellman is a freshwater ecosystem scientist whose research focuses on understanding how climate change alters the timing, magnitude, and predictability of freshwater ecosystem structure and function. She's particularly interested in the changing role of ice and snow in northern and alpine rivers. And her dissertation research required a remarkable combination of skill sets, ranging from intensive field sampling in the wilds of New Hampshire, the construction and maintenance of novel environmental sensor technologies, data scientists, and sophisticated remote sensing analysis. Much of her PhD was funded by a fellowship from NASA, and yet she spent a lot of time scrubbing rocks with toothbrushes. That's an ecology PhD right there. I lead with this because I think what's really special about Audrey is her fearless pursuit of novel approaches and novel combinations of approaches in the pursuit of knowledge about how freshwater ecosystems are changing. In her PhD work and now in her postdoctoral work at UNC, Audrey is taking full advantage of the revolution in satellite imagery and data processing technologies to study rivers at a scale we've never been able to do before. By virtue of being like narrow linear features, flowing waters have largely been left out of the revolution in ecological research supported by remote sensing technology. But as those technologies get better and better and finer resolution, this no longer needs to be the case. And so Audrey is ideally situated to be a pioneer in both applying existing and driving novel remote sensing technologies to the study of rivers. As a PhD student, Audrey threw herself into challenging situations again and again. She essentially took the coursework for a master's in data science in order to serve as a mentor for mid students who helped her develop machine learning techniques for her PhD. She spearheaded a summer research team of Duke undergrads with Duke's Data Plus program. She mentored 5 summer undergrad research fellows who've each gone on to apply or are currently applying to graduate programs in ecology. Along the way, she completed Duke's Excellent Certificate in College Teaching program and served as a key leader for both the university program in ecology and the Department of Biology's graduate program. She has, in short, all of the ingredients for great success as an academic. She possesses a drive and curiosity, a capacity for amassing new skills, a talent for building and motivating teams, and a love for mentoring and teaching others. I just read for you my letter, mostly, to UC Santa Barbara for her faculty position that she applied for and was recently offered. So I'm so pleased to conclude by saying that you do, in fact, have a real job. And I expect that Audrey will continue to think hard about the changing winter conditions of mountain streams from the vantage point of a surfboard. Congratulations, Audrey. Okay, and now I think the freshest PhD in the room is Dr. Johnny Behrens. He officially defended his PhD on Monday. So Dr. Behrens came to Duke following an undergraduate degree in chemistry from the University of Chicago and 2 years working in a think tank on Capitol Hill, where he attempted to explain academic science to lawmakers. And I think very formative for you in that process was a year of like helping people think about contaminants in the environment and realizing how little your chemistry degree had prepared you for some of the questions that were coming up in those conversations. And so that experience got him extremely interested in the role of chemical contaminants in the environment and fueled his desire to become expert on how aquatic ecosystems are responding to chemical pollution. He decided he wanted to become an ecologist, and this was a pretty brave thing, an interesting choice, given that Johnny was a lab rat, a city boy, and slightly afraid of spiders. Yet he faced these fears down and developed a dissertation based here in Durham County, exploring the complex chemical mixtures that enter our urban rivers as a result of stormwaters running over roofs, roads, parking lots, and lawns, and as a result of our leaky sewers and wastewater treatment plants. These are the problems that all of the rivers and the places that we live face. In addition to furthering his capacities in environmental chemistry, Johnny spent several years collecting and identifying the aquatic insects that live in and emerge as winged adults from our local streams. These are the food web of our rivers. He showed that even though urban rivers receive enormous subsidies of nutrients and energy from their altered landscape that should fuel these food webs, they actually produce far fewer animals of much lower diversity than their more protected forested counterparts. The frequent disturbance, chemical pollution, and degraded habitats make these food webs very inefficient at converting sunlight into fish. Over the last 5 years, Johnny has become a very talented field ecologist, an expert aquatic entomologist, an amateur ecotoxicologist, and an accomplished environmental chemist. That's a lot of ground to cover in a dissertation, and he's done it through boundless curiosity and a great deal of hard work. Throughout his PhD, Johnny has proved himself an inspiring mentor to undergraduate and master's students. Through 2 Bass Connections teams, a Summer Data Plus team, and mentoring multiple summer research fellows, by my count, Johnny closely mentored more than 40 undergraduate and master's students during his dissertation work, and many of them are pursuing careers in environmental science or graduate programs in ecology because of his influence. Johnny also has a real job. He recently accepted a postdoctoral position at Oak Ridge National Labs, where he'll be working with an interdisciplinary team of ecologists, hydrologists, and toxicologists to explore how climate change and chemical pollution are altering the headwaters of the Little Tennessee River, right? And I expect great new insights will arise. Congratulations, Johnny.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I am not me. I am channeling Dr. Jean-Philippe Givert, who is currently introducing his one-year-old daughter to his extended family in Uruguay, which is a very good excuse for not being here today. And so let me just see if I can bring some Jean-Philippe energy in here. Okay, so here's what Jean-Philippe wrote for you. Doing a PhD in 5 years is hard enough. Doing 2 is impossible. And 2 is impossible, right? When Christopher joined the Givert Lab, he had the seemingly impossible task of graduating in precisely 2 years, due to a transition, which we don't need to go into. He knew he had no time to waste, so he applied himself like there was no tomorrow. He was the first to arrive in the lab and the last to leave, day in, day out. I once attempted to kick him out of the lab on a Friday, late at night, after which I can only assume had been a 13-plus hour-long coding session, to no avail. If this incredibly compressed timeline wasn't enough, Christopher dealt with immense personal and professional challenges and setbacks in those 2 years. I joked that maybe the universe was trying to tell him something. He replied that he just wasn't interested in listening. So Christopher endured and persevered to the point, this is a word that I don't think is a real word, so I'm just going to say he persevered and endured. It seemed like the harder it got, the more Christopher's internal fire burned hot. And then one day I finally could see what was obvious to Christopher all along. If someone could make this happen, it was him. And so he did. In working towards his PhD, Christopher showed that we cannot solely focus on rising temperatures to understand, let alone predict, microbial global responses to global climate change. A major finding that was published in Global Change Biology this year, a leading journal in his field, and a major accomplishment for a scientist at any career level. All the while, he helped other grads in my lab got his work submitted and published, received 2 postdoc offers, and took a job at the Bird Conservancy of the Rockies, where he will continue his groundbreaking research using computational tools to answer pressing ecological questions in a rapidly changing world. It's been a true honor to work alongside such a phenomenal scientist. I still wonder, this is from Jean-Philippe, who advised whom. In any case, congratulations, Dr. Kilner. I'm going to give you a hug. It's
I have the pleasure of presenting Dr. Anita Simha. I want to start by saying it was very fitting that Dean Benier started this with acknowledging the native tribes that were on this landscape before we came here. It's particularly fitting for Anita's research because much of their work has focused on how history that many of us don't think about, may not acknowledge, plays a critical role in understanding how interactions play out today, understanding the ecological processes that play out. We can't do that without thinking about the history, and that is a perspective that Anita has brought to all of their research. They are a lifelong North Carolinian, growing up in Cary, high school just down the road at Science and Math, going to UNC, and finally we were able to bring them into Duke's orbit for their PhD, and it's been a wonderful time. They have made themselves central to all things going on at Duke. Their science has been amazing. I'll get into that in a minute, but I also want to acknowledge their role in really pushing forward efforts in diversity, equity, and inclusion. There hasn't practically been any action on campus that they haven't played a crucial role in. So Anita's work, as I mentioned, focuses on how history, what happened in years prior, shapes what we see today. This is a question that has puzzled ecologists for quite a while. It's a hard problem to solve. But Anita has tackled it with a range of approaches. They have used greenhouse experiments, large field experiments. They have used observational studies and mastered a number of important data analytical techniques to get at these questions. And they have really shown that, no, it's not possible just to ignore the past. We need to think about that and recognize that it's the way it plays forward into today. They do that not only in their science, but also in how they think about science. I think one of the truly remarkable things is one of their chapters that grew out of their certificate in gender, sexuality, and feminist studies really looks at how the history of ecological thinking influences the very questions that we ask. And so in this way, they're a real thought leader, not just in how we do science, but also how we think about science. And I think that's been one of the real pleasures. I say it's always a sign of having a great PhD student when, as they walk out the door, you realize that you think about your own work in a very different way. And that is absolutely the case with Anita. And I'm thrilled that they as well have a real job and will be heading off to a postdoc at LSU. And I'm sure they will be doing amazing things as they go forward in the future. So, thank you.
We'll now hear from Dr. Stuart Pym, Heather Stapleton, Kate Hoffman, and Robert Ty about graduates from our Environment PhD program.
Will you come up? I'm delighted to be able to talk. Oh, I'm so glad you came. Hi. Hello. Of course. So glad to be able to introduce Will and his family. Will is from Colombia, which, as most people know, is the #1 country in the world for biodiversity. Will joined me and then went home the first Christmas because, amongst other things, he needed to see his family, and he mentioned something about getting married. COVID intervened, and I didn't see him until he arrived a year later with his lovely wife, Nizla. So it's been an eventful few years, as it has been for many of us students. Almost 2 years ago, the nations of the world got together in Montreal to participate in COP15, the Convention of Parties of the Convention on Biological Diversity. And the challenge they issued is to protect 30% of the planet, to prevent species extinctions. And the question is, how do we do that? So Will's first challenge was to work with other members of the group to come up with cutting-edge technologies that bring together remote sensing, existing knowledge, crowdsourced data, and come up with better maps of where species are. If we're going to stop extinctions, we need to know. And Will did that, and then proceeded to do a landmark study that shows species are moving up slope to cooler places. Now, people would notice that individual species had wandered to higher elevations, but nobody had done it on such a geographically extensive scale. So we know from Will's work that species are going higher up and higher up and higher up, and they're going to run out of space. The next paper was to identify where the priorities are. If we're going to protect biodiversity, we need to know exactly where to act. I run a nonprofit called Saving Nature that helps communities, particularly in Colombia, but elsewhere in the world's tropics, to acquire land and plant millions and millions of trees. And Will's work informs that. And then in a paper that I particularly love because it brings together all sorts of members of my group, Will has looked at where we need to go, where we need to explore. This is important because all of my explorers are women I don't think men have the right stuff to explore the remote parts of Colombia. And my previous PhD student, Natalia Ocampo-Puenuelo, also from Colombia, leads a team of extraordinarily tough ladies who go where no man has boldly gone before, or indeed gone at all. So Will has had a successful career, writing fantastic papers which have appeared in great journals, and he and his wife have produced 2 wonderful and engaging children. Will, congratulations.
All right, good morning, everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to introduce Dr. Jessica Lavasser to all of you. Dr. Kate Hoffman and I had the pleasure of co-advising Jess during her journey. We're excited to share some highlights with you, and we'll take turns kind of mentioning some of the things that Jess completed along this PhD journey. So as you heard earlier, Jess received her bachelor's degree in chemistry from Colby College and went on to earn a master's in environmental health at the University of Washington. In the fall of 2018, she matriculated into our Environment PhD program, driven by her ambition to advance human exposure research and support environmental health assessments, goals she has certainly surpassed. Her dissertation research explored human exposure to parabens, which are a class of chemicals commonly found in personal care products. Her research evaluated the strengths and limitations of using a wearable exposure tool, silicone wristbands, to characterize exposure to these chemicals and others that originate from personal care products. To support these studies, Jess had to collect quite a bit of urine. When I say a bit, I mean a lot. So some of you in this room might have been participants in her research study, so I want to say thank you. I'm sure Jess says thank you very much as well. These very large, bright orange containers. Can you imagine all of your urine for 24 hours a day? That gets to be quite a lot. So this really led to some lighthearted moments in the lab with some nicknames about urine lady or the lady collects all the urine, which was, very fun. And was celebrated with a uniquely themed cake in the shape of a urine cup after her defense. So I want to thank all of her lab mates for supporting her in that. Let me turn it over to Kate.
Jess is so awesome, it takes 2 of us. So Jess's graduate career has been both diverse and fruitful. She was awarded the prestigious Health Policy Research Scholars Fellowship from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, underscoring her leadership in the field and deep commitment to environmental justice. She also contributed to the Environmental Law Clinic. She served as president of the NSOE PhD Advocacy Council and was active in various other roles, including as a liaison to the Graduate Student Affairs Office and being a member of the Life Cycle Assessment Student Council. And with all that, she even found time to join the Go to Green Action Team in Durham. So she's been very busy. Her academic rigor is evident also through 7 papers that she published during her PhD, 3 of which she was first author on, and we hope that she will submit another paper this summer to wrap that up. One of these papers also received the 2023 Dean's Award for Outstanding Graduate Student Manuscript, which I think, given all the wonderful graduates to hear today, is a real testament to the work that Jess did here at Duke. Remarkably, Jess achieved all of this while raising 2 wonderful boys. She really mastered the art of multitasking and demonstrated resilience and determination throughout the entire process. So looking ahead, Jess will continue her impactful work as a postdoctoral scholar at the EPA, where she'll further advocacy for human health risk assessment and greater transparency in chemical use. We're immensely proud of Jess and all she has accomplished, and we're confident that she'll continue to excel and inspire in her career. Congratulations to Jess, and best of luck.
It's my honor to present Dr. Marissa Gutenberg. As she will attest to, she's my first graduate student, so we've been sort of winging it as we've gone along. I would say that one of the things that I've always loved about Marissa is that she, every time she would come to me with, like, we're supposed to be doing this, and I would say, what's that? And she would figure it out and then come back to me and say, you need to do this. And I would say, okay, let's do this together. And has been an incredible first student to have. And I'm honored that you're graduating at this point and really excited to see how you grow in the future. Dr. Gutenberg came to us as a New Yorker at heart and came to us from SUNY Albany, where she was focused on nanoscience as a part of her undergraduate degree, but became really interested in trying to understand health effects of air pollutants. I think probably maybe a day after she got the invite to come interview, I heard from her. And then the day of her interview day, I was like her first interview person. And then I think almost maybe a couple of hours after she was accepted, she emailed me to see if she could do a rotation in my lab. And so I've never met anybody that's been that enthusiastic about joining my lab, but also taking on the responsibility of being the first person to come into this space. She had been really interested in trying to understand how humans respond to air pollutants and what does that cause in the lung in terms of injury responses. And embarked on an ambitious project that was really focused on trying to understand, in particularly, how our body resolves that injury, and where there could be detriments to that actually could lead to people having exacerbated health problems, particularly from lung disease. She is a product of COVID. She did her rotation and then is like basically showing up to the lab to start her formal training, and we all shut down. The mice all went away, and she and I sat on Zoom meetings for the next space of about a year. And so I know it's been said before, but I think we have to honor all of the trainees that have gone to get PhDs in this space, because it's an incredible testament to your perseverance that you're able to go through all that. She made some fundamental observations in understanding how immune cells within the lung have an important role in resolving inflammation, both based on a specific population of immune cells of a macrophage that has a particular role in actually taking up inflammatory cells and helping to resolve that inflammation. That paper was published in one of the preeminent journals in my field, has an editorial, and actually she's in a couple of weeks giving a talk at the national meeting that we have specifically focused on the novelty of this observation. And so I'm really excited to see her continue to develop. She is interested in going into industry and is actively looking for jobs. So if anybody has any job ideas, like, she's open and available. She probably does. A couple of things that I wanted to say. So Marissa has an intense love of science, and it is infectious. It has totally changed the way my lab operates. She really has created a culture in my lab space that will endure long after she is gone. The lights might come on a little bit more because she does like it dark, and so my lab, as many of you know, or if you've seen it, has a vampire out in the front, and then a response that's saying the lights are off, we're actually here, just come on in. So the lights may go back on, but other than that, what she created in a culture is really amazing. And then I think the one last thing that I want to acknowledge before I get the hook from somebody else is she has this intense ability to bring people together. It is one of her superpowers, and actually a testament to the project that I talked about that she published that was so impactful was really bringing together the entire lab to work on aspects of where people took their strengths and brought them all together into something that was truly amazing. And so I'm so excited to see you go forward in life, and really excited to see all the things you do.
Marine science and conservation graduates, you are in for a once-in-a-lifetime treat. So I want you to pause and savor it. Doctors Andy Reid, Brian Silliman, and Grant Murray have actually dressed up all fancy.
Thank you, Prasad. If you don't know, the typical uniform of faculty members at the Marine Lab are board shorts. Flip-flops, thank you, Doug. So we are a little constrained in all this strange clothing we're wearing today. Please, you can hug. Yeah. Please bear with us. Also, please bear with me because I get emotional when I do these things, so I'm going to read this. Okay, so as Prasad said, I'm Andy Reid. I'm one of the faculty members from the Marine Lab in Beaufort, and it's my great pleasure today to introduce Dr. Dana Louise Wright. When Dana first approached me in 2017, she was already working at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in Seattle. She already had a degree, undergraduate degree from the University of Maine, master's degree from the University of Alaska, and she'd been awarded a National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship. And she had what I thought was a slightly outrageous proposition for me in terms of the PhD work that she wanted to do. She suggested that she should study the critically endangered eastern population of the North Pacific right whale. And you should know that there are only 30 of those whales left in existence. And those 30 whales live in an area that is twice the size of Africa. So I was intrigued in how Dana was going to approach this incredible task. While working at NOAA, Dana had been using passive acoustics, essentially listening to the calls of whales that were recorded on bottom-mounted recorders on their feeding grounds in the Bering Sea and the Gulf of Alaska. So Dana was able to tell when they came back each spring, when they left in the wintertime. But remarkably, we have no idea where those whales go in the winter, especially where females might go to give birth to their calves. And as Dana pointed out, it's hard to conserve a species when you don't know where they are and what threats they might be facing. So in her dissertation research, Dana used a variety of very sophisticated approaches to gain insight into the distribution of these whales and their prey. I think the coolest method she used was to use biogeochemical tracers in the baleen plates of these whales to make inference about where they had been. Like all baleen whales, North Pacific right whales have baleen plates that they use to filter their planktonic prey. And just like your hair or your fingernails, those baleen plates create historical records of the ecological conditions and physiological conditions of the animal. And luckily, in right whales, these plates are quite long, so they leave a history that spans several years. So Dana scoured every museum in North America to try and find these plates. And I mean scoured. No museum was left unturned. Somehow she managed to persuade museum curators to allow her to sample these incredibly rare and valuable plates. And that's a testament to her fortitude and to her skill. And she did that during COVID. So there are these incredible pictures of her at the Smithsonian with this enormous long plate wearing a mask. And so I just think, like everybody else, the fact that you guys did this during COVID is incredible. I'm so in awe of all of that. And just to give you a sense of the kind of historical time span of these plates, one of the plates that Dana sampled was donated to the Smithsonian in 1862 by Charles Melville Scammon, a very famous whaler and naturalist. So Dana's work yielded incredible new insights into the ecology and the distribution of these whales, although we still don't know where they go in the wintertime. But we have a much better idea now where to look and where to listen. Since graduation, Dana's returned to work for NOAA and continues to study the acoustics of these really rare whales in the North Pacific. And in this post-COVID world where many people now work remotely, I'm thrilled. I learned last night that she and her partner have returned to North Carolina, so we're going to be able to collaborate some more. She's already penciled in for several guest lectures on my class in the fall. So I'm very glad that when she was a young girl growing up in rural Idaho, that her parents, who are here today, did not buy her the horse that she wanted. So if they had, she might have reached her aspiration of being a barrel rider or a rodeo queen. And the North Pacific right whale would have lost its most important champion. So I'm very proud to present to you Dr. Dana Louise Wright.
It's my deep honor and pleasure to introduce to you one of the most exceptional, inspirational people I know, Dr. Leo Gaskin. So many reasons for those accolades, but I just want to highlight a few of those. Leo received his undergraduate degree from Duke University, and that's where we first met on a trip to the Bahamas. And one of the things I first discovered about his amazing brain was we were out on these rocky shores looking at, of course, snails and looking at the marine ecology. And Leo came to the group and said, I just saw this amazing interaction with this land iguana going into the marine system and eating crabs. And I said, that doesn't happen. And Leo said, it just did. And I've been there for 10, 15 years. Professors have been there for 20 or 30 years. Nobody had seen this interaction. And Leo brought us over there, said, take your time, look at this. This is something that's happening that I don't think is supposed to happen. And it was true. And then we got back, and he wrote that up and published that paper about this note that was changing the way we think. And that's a theme throughout his research, is that he's changing the way we think about things that we've seen again and again. And for your dissertation, you received your ideas, the NSF GRF. And those ideas were centered around the question of what can we learn from megafauna, large animals over 100 pounds, in the recovery when we do have conservation success. And he did amazing analysis of the literature and looking at salt marshes found that these animals really live in a great diversity of habitats, way more than we think. Sea otters love seagrasses and salt marshes. River otters love the ocean. Marine mammals are in temperate zones. It's just changing the way we think about where these large animals can live, how they can benefit things, and where they can be conserved. And then Leo jumped in and said, I want to figure out what they're doing in these systems. And he said, I'm going to look at megafauna and salt marshes. It was amazing. And he studied sea otter effects in these systems and seal effects and found that they're having tremendous impacts. And so where you might imagine when you go to the coast for vacation, you think about salt marshes, the dominion of very small invertebrates and small animals. In reality, Leo has shown the world that these coastal systems are hotspots, not cold spots, for megafauna. Large seals, sea lions, crocodiles, alligators congregate in these areas when they're protected from human activity. And it's just changing the way we're thinking about those systems. And he's published many papers on that, 3 or 4 really important papers. And on top of that, he's 10 other papers on the side dealing with the notes and new discoveries that he's seen, but also importantly, one of his most inspirational contributions to the field is in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And being a voice for that to academics, not just in presentations at the university and advising, but in publishing papers in prestigious journals that call out the inequities that are happening in academia and saying we need to change. This is somebody doing that before they get their PhD. And he's leading the charge. And I write in our letters about Leo is that what he's done for the community is what very few full professors have done in giving back. And thank you for being inspirational in that to me and so many others. Leo is taking off now. He has received a big grant to study now in inland wetlands, how recovering large animals are affecting wetlands and bird diversity in those areas. And he's also, I'm very happy to announce, received a Smith Fellowship postdoctoral scholar for the next 2 years, which is one of the most prestigious ones in conservation. He'll be at the University of Chicago studying with some great ecologists. He set himself up on his own and been a leader for the next 3 years. And I'm so excited to see, what's going to happen with your career. And most importantly, Justin pointed out, it's made me reassess, the ecology that I've been into and think about, but also reassess how I need to be a leader in a different way and help in diversity, equity, inclusion as much as I can. And I think that you have inspired me and so many people here at Duke, and we're so grateful. I'm so grateful to have you as my friend, to be your collaborator, for you to be my mentor in many ways, and for me to be your mentor. And thank you, you're just an inspiration to so many. Dr. Dean.
Okay, I'm going to say a little bit about Julia in just a moment and her work, but I actually want to go back, as one of the earlier speakers did, to the Dean's opening remarks and the land acknowledgement, because they're very germane to what Julia worked on. In that acknowledgement, we heard about the peoples that had been here for a long time before many of us arrived. Those people, for thousands of years, had been stewards of the lands that they inhabited, took care of it, had deep knowledge of it, and valued it in different ways than some of us do. And those kinds of themes are important for the work that Julia did. I'm going to begin by reading the title of her dissertation because it says a lot about that work, and I'll reflect on some of the words that are in there and then talk more about Julia's path to completion. Bear with me, it's kind of a long title. Knowledge and Power Through Pluralisms and Relationality in the Governance of Salmon on the West Coast of Vancouver Island. So I'll begin with the easy part, salmon, right? This is an iconic species on the west coast of Canada, west coast of the United States as well. It's one of those species like New England cod or Idaho potatoes, we had that really resonate culturally as well as ecologically with us, right? They're touchstones for a lot of people. They mean something for the social fabric of the peoples that interact with them on a daily basis. That includes the indigenous peoples of British Columbia. Governance, right? This is about how we make decisions. This is about the things we do, the ways we come together, the ways that we deliberate, the knowledges we draw on, the ways we come together to make decisions, in this case about resources. And so Julia was wrestling with those larger questions about governance and salmon. She looked at that in particular through this notion of pluralisms and relationality. Relationality, right? And this is about how we relate to one another and thinking relationally, not just thinking about objects as separate entities, but about how we relate to those things. So, for example, rather than treating salmon as a stock to be utilized, hopefully sustainably, as part of our diets or part of our economies, relationality in an indigenous context points us to thinking about things like respect, right? How do we interact with another species, a non-human species, in a respectful kind of way? Reciprocity, how when we take do we give? What is the exchange in a relationship with another organism, another part of our ecosystems of which we're a part? Pluralisms, right? There's more than one way to deal with these things. We can understand the world in different places, in different ways. So again, rather than salmon being a stock or a resource or a tasty treat during a meal, maybe it's kin, right? Maybe it's a species with which we share a spiritual connection, right? A cultural connection with another species. These are difficult topics, right? To get our heads around these, to understand what they mean. And Julia has really done an enormously excellent job at doing that. Last two words I'll speak about, knowledge and power. Knowledge, how we understand the world, what we believe to be true, and power, that each of us sitting around the table where decisions are made are not equally empowered. Some of us have fancy degrees. Some of us have more money. Some of us have political positions. Some of us are part of the dominant culture in a particular society. Some of us have history or social connections. There's a lot of ways we can think about how we might influence another in decision making. And all of that put together is what Julia has managed to accomplish in the years that she was at Duke University. She came to us from the West Coast, south of her eventual study area, and I'm going to say three things about her path. One, she came in as a natural scientist. A lot of my good friends are natural scientists. There's nothing wrong with that. I respect the natural sciences to their core, but they are not by training social scientists, which is what our lab is about. And these fields work well off. In Julia's case, where working at a could have been worse. We had a major field experiment or field trip planned for her starting on April 8th, 2020. 4 months of time, funding arranged, time spent, connections made, hotels, flights, all of that was in place. Right, the world went boom at that time, right? And Julia managed to reboot, recalibrate, and bring things back on track. And I'm really proud of what she did there. Third thing she did along the way is work meaningfully and authentically at that community scale. It is easy to say that I'm working with a community. It's easy to put that in a proposal. To do that authentically, meaningfully, where at the end of the day the community is proud of the work, which they are, is very difficult to do. So that's a third thing I'd like to sort of acknowledge Julia's work for. I'm going to stop before I break down because I also get emotional in these things. And I will conclude by saying, like other graduates here from the program, Julia successfully obtained a job, has been working with a joint appointment between the National Oceanographic Atmospheric Administration and the University of Rhode Island for the last year, transferring some of those skills from her context in Western Canada to the Northeast, and in this case, thinking about fisheries and wind farm interactions. Well done, Dr. Bingham.
To present our university program in environmental policy graduates, we'll hear from Drs. Kay Jowers and Erica Weinthal.
Hello, I am honored to be here to present the remarkable work of Dr. Yu Ma. And I am going to also hope that I don't get too emotional. I have worked with you for 9 years. So I have a long history with her, and I'm so excited to be here to celebrate her work. She finished her PhD last summer and has been working in a postdoctoral position here at the Nicholas School for the last year, but I first encountered her when she was a master's student in the econ department, meeting her in 2015 when we were introduced by my close collaborator and her advisor there, Christopher Timmons. And we began working on concentrated animal feeding operations and how they impact communities in eastern North Carolina for the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. Her work has been amazing and very community and external decision maker responsive. Her work has influenced regulatory policy in North Carolina and improved the lives of environmental justice communities. And for that, I am so grateful and hope you are proud of the impact that you have had. She was the first research assistant in the Duke Environmental Justice Lab that Christopher Timmons and I founded in 2017, and she was our only graduate research assistant for 3 years. So while she was working on her master's thesis and her dissertation, she was also working on numerous other projects that benefit community around the country. So, and putting up with me asking for an unreasonable amount of robustness checks because her work is just that important for these communities, and she always passed them. Her work always was coming back as robust and impactful for these communities and changing the conditions on the ground for them. She has been tirelessly working to understand not only factory farming, but the impacts of green gentrification on affordable housing here in Durham, North Carolina, so also having an impact for communities not too far from here, as well as doing research on energy and energy poverty and many other topics. Her research is not only academically rigorous, but really grounded in that level of community responsiveness. She is dedicated to ensuring that her research questions are ones that the community really cares about and helps to shape the research. Her dissertation research focused on concentrated animal feeding operations and contributed greatly to our understanding not only of how the hog farming industry impacts communities, but she added in the valuable aspect of how poultry farms, unregulated facilities by our environmental department, affect the communities as well. So we were able to add an element that was a real contribution to the literature and to the understanding of how these communities are impacted. She assessed who is impacted, which social groups, finding that Black populations at all income levels are disproportionately impacted. She then assessed how their family wealth is impacted in the value of their homes by being located in proximity to these facilities or co-located close to both hog and poultry farms. And that wasn't enough. She then had to go on to figure out, well, how is climate change going to make this even more complicated for those communities? And that is, she's continuing to do that work now as she has been working with us in the EJ Lab on many other projects. I'm very pleased to say she is moving on to a postdoc at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, where she'll be doing some work on energy. And I don't know what I'm going to do without her. After 9 years of working with her as a close collaborator, I really don't know what I'm going to do without you. And I hope that we will remain close collaborators for years to come. I'm so pleased to introduce Dr. Yuma.
Okay, I'm Erica Weinthal, and I was ECTA's advisor. I'm also someone who could get very emotional, so I'm trying to keep this at a level of talking about ECTA. And I want to really center ECTA today because it's been a remarkable journey, and it's an amazing moment to be able to say Dr. Ekta Patel. And I want to begin with adjectives. I just feel like I need to introduce her through just some very simple words, but they are that she is brilliant, tenacious, resilient, kind, generous, sharp, inquisitive. To put it simply, she is a rock star. And it has been such a delight to be able to work with her for 6-7 years. I've sort of lost count. And I want to say she came to Duke from Harvard, where she did her undergrad, but she had been in the real world before she came back to graduate school. And she spent her time at Duke working on a dissertation that evolved over many years and many different renditions. In 2023, she defended her dissertation, which was titled Managing Unconventional Water, Essays on Expert Knowledge, Media Framings, and Stakeholder Debates. So also lots of topics packed into that dissertation. But it really looked at the way that different stakeholders influence the adoption of desalination technologies, who participates in those decisions, how we govern new technologies related to desalination. It was comprised of 3 very distinct chapters that worked at different levels of analysis. One chapter looked at expert knowledge and international coordinating bodies. So here it was looking at UN water, so working at the global level. Her second chapter dove into a large data set where she was looking at how desalination was framed and looking at global news media for her analysis. And then her third chapter was really diving into a case study of the Huntington Beach desalination plant in California and looking at the role of stakeholder participation there and decision making, and also, how we cite different desalination plants, looking at environmental justice concerns, and that chapter was recently published in the journal Water Alternatives. As we've heard, you can imagine writing a dissertation during the pandemic was challenging, and this was the case. Archives were closed, meetings went online, it became very difficult to travel for field work, especially when you wanted to be immersed in the community in meetings. But ECTA always found novel ways to collect and analyze data. I was always surprised that there was a new way that you could get at these questions. For example, she found a way to combine quantitative big data processing with qualitative content analysis. So methodologically, she was always innovating. During the pandemic, we spent many hours meeting on my back porch, discussing her dissertation. rather than, meeting in the office on campus. And I have to say that my dog no longer barks when Ekta walks through my backyard. And so she really is part of our extended family. Ekta was also incredibly busy during her time at Duke. It wasn't that she was just working on her research, but she was also the lead author of USAID's Water and Conflict Toolkit, which is one of the defining products for USAID these days for their implementing partners that looks at how one implements water programming in conflict zones. She also co-authored a report for USAID on wildlife trafficking in the Mekong, and then she co-taught a Basque Connections class with me on COVID-19 water sanitation and health in the Middle East and North Africa. So she managed to stay busy even as the university was shutting down. I am really pleased to say that, like many of our students here, they are going off to real jobs, and Ekta has a job starting very soon at USAID as a global water security specialist. I am really excited about this position because I think it is the perfect fit given all of her experience and work while she's been a student at Duke. And it will really allow her to continue what she came to Duke to do, was really to think about how we extend access to clean water and sanitation throughout the world. And so I really look forward to seeing where this position takes her. And then I would be remiss if I did not extend my congratulations to Dylan and Ekta's mother, who are here today. I am really grateful to both of you and the rest of Ekta's family for helping carry Ekta through this journey. I know you are her bedrock and that you played really important roles in this process. And so for me, it's been just a tremendous privilege to work with Ekta. My warmest congratulations to Dr. Patel.
Wow. Let's just give one more huge round of applause to our graduating doctoral students. I always love this event because I get to hear about the breadth and depth of research that our doctoral students do, and it reminds me why it's so amazing to be at the Nicholas School with the diversity and interdisciplinarity of the topics that people are studying. It's just really incredible. So thank you. And now we're going to move on briefly to some awards. As the Dean of the Nicholas School, I have the pleasure of giving the Dean's Award for Outstanding Student Manuscript, which recognizes outstanding research and writing done by a current PhD candidate. I love this award, much like I love this event, because it gives me an opportunity to read the amazing work that is being conducted by our doctoral students, and to read the letters of nomination from their faculty advisors that are always so incredibly effusive with their praise and demonstrate how proud they are. The choices are always really difficult because everybody's work is really good and because they're on a whole bunch of different topics. We had outstanding contenders this year as usual. So I want to extend my sincere congratulations to all of the nominees and thank all of the faculty for submitting such wonderful nominations. But this year we're recognizing 2 winners. Each winner will receive a cash prize and a framed certificate. So first up, we have Rafaela Lobo. Please join me on stage. All right, Rafa, as she is known, is the recipient of the Dean's Award for Outstanding Student Manuscript for the paper A Whale of a Blind Spot, the quote-unquote effectiveness of bribes, threats, and socialization in the International Whaling Commission. And it was published in Alternatives, Global, Local, and Political, and she works with Dr. Lisa Campbell as her advisor. So Rafa's PhD research addresses international governance for biodiversity conservation, particularly from the perspective of the Global South. Rafa's paper questions common beliefs in international relations by studying how developing countries behave at the International Whaling Commission. She finds that existing research often ignores or simplifies why developing countries act the way they do, assuming external influences like threats or bribes from developed countries are the key motivating factors, rather than internal priorities of the developing country. Hoffa's research demonstrates how Brazil's stance on whaling changed over time, not as a function of external threats and bribes, but as a direct function of changes in internal motivations of the Brazilian government and people. This challenges traditional explanations and emphasizes the importance of understanding developing countries' agency in global decision-making. Hoffa's research shows that recognizing these perspectives is crucial for fair conservation practices and global governance. Congratulations. The cash award will be presumably forthcoming in some other way because it's not back here. Here is the certificate honoring your achievement. Thank you so much. The second winner is not in attendance today, but I'm thrilled to share that Kiki He is the recipient of the second Dean's Award for Outstanding Student Manuscript for the paper Identifying Driving Hydrogeomorphic Factors of Coastal Wetland Downgrading Using Random Forest Classification Models, which was published in Science of the Total Environment. So you see the issue, right? I got all sorts of papers on all sorts of different topics to review. So Kiki's paper recognized that coastal wetlands are important ecosystems but face significant threats like flooding and saltwater intrusion due to climate change and human actions. His study looked at why wetlands are degrading and found that different types of wetlands are affected differently. He and his co-authors investigated 3 types of wetland degradation, including woody and emergent herbaceous wetland loss and conversions between them. Using machine learning methods, they studied wetlands in the Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge from 1995 to 2019 and found that factors like saltwater intrusion and flooding impacted wetlands differently. Woody wetlands are most affected by saltwater, while emergent herbaceous wetlands suffer from flooding and drought. Understanding these factors can help us protect and manage wetlands better in the future. So congratulations in absentia to Kiki He. And at this point, I'm going to welcome Andy back to the stage to give our closing remarks and help direct us to the celebration afterwards.
Thank you, Dean Bonnier. I'm keenly aware that I'm the only thing standing between us and champagne, which I love, so I'll keep this brief. Let me begin by restating the obvious. Doing a PhD is really, really hard. Always. Completing a PhD at any time is a remarkable achievement, and all of you did this during a pandemic, and I'm really just in awe of that. So you should feel remarkably brilliant, even more brilliant than you feel every day. For most of us, the PhD degree is the most immersive, the most challenging, and hopefully one of the most rewarding intellectual experiences of our lives, and I hope you feel the same way. Your advisors, we asked you to tackle a difficult problem that no one else had ever solved, and to advance our understanding of the world in a way that nobody else had ever done. The diversity of approaches and questions that you've taken to push back the frontiers of our knowledge is, as Lori just said, really remarkable and impressive. Of course, this process is not just challenging intellectually, but it's emotionally difficult. PhD is 5 or 6 or 7. We don't really talk about anything beyond 7. Your journey with many twists, turns, and setbacks. You might remember the brilliant research question that you woke up with in the middle of the night, only to find that somebody had answered that in a paper that nobody's ever read in 1975. You might remember the experiment that failed and failed and failed. The challenges of coding the 100th interview in vivo, or your advisor's peculiar inability to comprehend the beautiful logic contained in the penultimate sentence of paragraph 3 on page 147 of the first draft of your dissertation. And finally, you submit your beautiful work for publication and find out you have to deal with reviewer number 2. what's with that. But fortunately, you've had a lot of help and support to get you through this journey. Hopefully your advisor and your committee have been at least of some help or have got out of the way to let you do your work. But it's really the other people in this room who have been important to you. Your family, your partner, your friends, your peers, your cohort, and maybe not in this room now, but your dog, your cat, your support bunny, the people and creatures who ensured that you made it across the finish line. So I just want to say thank you to all of you here who have done such yeoman's work to make sure that they got across the finish line. Thank you. The strength, perseverance, and brilliance of our graduates is what makes me believe that we will get through the challenges that we face in the future. And you should all be immensely proud of your remarkable achievements. So for the last time, congratulations, another round of applause. So the way this works now is that